when President Trump's openly racist chief of staff, retired four-star Marine General John Kelly, was still the head of the Department of Homeland Security. He appointed as the department's head of faith-based and neighborhood partnerships a former Republican operative and right-wing radio host, Rev. Jamie Johnson, who had just recently used flagrantly racist and Islamophobic language on the air. You can listen to 6 of Johnson's charming sound bites below this article. CNN has just uncovered radio sound clips dating between 2008 and 2016 in which Johnson said things like, "It's an indictment of America's black community that has turned America's major cities into slums because of laziness, drug use and sexual promiscuity." This is the man tasked with heading faith and community-based initiatives to help victims of disasters, like Puerto Rico's Hurricane Maria. He also cast African Americans in a pejorative light in contrast to Jewish people. "I think one of the reasons why blacks are jealous of Jews is because Jewish people from their coming to America in great waves in the early part of the 1800s immediately rolled up their sleeves and began to work so hard and applied themselves to education and other means of improvement and other means of climbing I hate this phrase, but the social ladder if you will, and they have done exceptionally well for themselves. For only representing about 1.4% of America's population, they make up 12% of America's millionaires. Why? Because they work. Of course, he fails to mention that black people worked for free for hundreds of years, being beaten, tortured, raped and separated from their families. Once freed, they endured decades of Jim Crow and voter suppression, which persist to this day in the forms of voter ID laws, an imbalanced criminal justice system, the prison industrial complex, unequal educational access, unpunished police brutality and vigilante murders, and implicit bias that affects societal treatment and work opportunities. And yet, somehow, many black people succeed in spite of systemic oppression. But a bigot like Johnson would never acknowledge that. The good Reverend also said, "Islam is not our friend." I agree with Dinesh D'Souza, your friend and mine, who says all that Islam has ever given us is oil and dead bodies over the last millennia and a half. It is not a religion of peace, and we need to have somebody who understands that there is an ideology that is posing as a religion that is standing against everything that America was built upon and everything that is basically rooted in a Judeo-Christian tradition, and that is Islam. We have to have somebody who understands the Islamic threat to American freedoms. And I always believed that in the days following the 9/11 attacks on the World Trade Center and also on the Pentagon, that George W. Bush made a critical mistake that we are still in a sense paying for. He began to say a phrase that no one had ever said before in popular political culture, which is that Islam is a religion of peace. When confronted with the words he uttered as recently as a year ago, Johnson replied, "I regret the manner in which those thoughts were expressed in the past, but can say unequivocally that they do not represent my views personally or professionally." Often a bigot's response to his words and actions being exposed is, "That's not who I am." But if your actions and words constitute your character, then that is exactly who you are. And if you repeat it 6 or more times, it's your motto. Trump's white supremacist administration recruits racists to help them carry out their oppressive agenda. It's up to us, the people, to shame these vile characters out of office.